Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast, which helps entrepreneurs generate more impact, wealth and success, attract others for all the right reasons, and become a smart connector, the architect of your amazing business and life. This podcast is sponsored by Virtual Non-Execs, the world's #1 peer-to-peer board advisor community, which connects thousands of investors, entrepreneurs, and advisors globally. Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. It's great to have you here. I have a wonderful guest for you tonight, Nicky Dibben. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Nikki, it's great to have you here. So you're a marketer in the B2B space and you specialize in helping technology businesses. So that's something we're going to really dive deep into today. But before we do, I'd love you to just tell our viewers and listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you came from, how you ended up specializing in this really fascinating field, and just a bit more about you, bit of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started life as a computer scientist. So my first degree was in computer science at Cambridge. And the only thing I really learned from that, other than all the technical background, which serves me well today, is the fact that I didn't want to be a computer scientist. So I kind of worked in the university over the summer. And then my first ever job was actually in intellectual property management. So that was like taking mad inventions from academia and putting them in the commercial space. So properly commercializing technologies, everything from like weird airplane glues to speaking voice technology to all sorts of weird stuff. And then I had a variety of marketing jobs, and I was studying for my MBA as well at the time. And then the typical thing that happens with a tech company, everybody loves the technology. It gets taken over by a company in the States and they go, lovely, would you sit in the corner and, be the coloring in department? So I quit one day in a fit of pique. Didn't know what I was going to be doing, but I just quit. And my boss at the time, who I've actually been working with for the last, I counted 29 years, still very good friends today, he sort of looked at me and I looked at him and we went, yeah. So I quit. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then somebody from Vodafone, quite senior, called me to do some regulatory market research for them. So Vodafone was my first ever client. I set up on my own, and that was 24 years ago. Yeah, so with the exception of a 3-year stint, which I was VP marketing at a global telecoms equipment company in New Zealand. So I've still always worked from home because I commuted to New Zealand. I did that between 2010 and 2013, and then went back working for myself again. And that's kind of where I sort of evolved. And then my third degree was my marketing degree. So I actually came via computer science, via an MBA, to finally doing a marketing degree about 10 years ago. So that was the last one of the 3. I think I was going to be done now.
Yeah. So you must have loved studying then to have really, you've got an incredible range of skills and experience and those qualifications are pretty impressive. You must have your net
I'm a fortunate academic. I think, if academia could buy shoes and handbags, I'd still be there, I think, because I love, even the Chinese banner behind me, it stands for endless learning, and I just love it. Academia is one of my passions, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing because when we learn, we grow, we develop as humans, we become more interesting. Mm. So I'm with you on that. I love learning as well. It's just a way to keep ourselves fresh and interesting to ourselves as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I get very annoyed when people say you can't possibly call yourself an expert because that implies you think you know everything. I even did a post on LinkedIn about 6 months ago, like with the actual dictionary definition of expert. And I'm like, no, the day I say I've stopped learning, an expert is just, this is what I do. This is all I do. I'm very good at it. At no point does the definition say I've stopped learning.
Definitely. And I think that's a really important point because, as you said, people love to take a pop at experts. And really an expert, all it means is that you have some expertise that other people don't have, right? And that expertise is valuable and sellable. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Oh, quite.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was quite interesting when you were talking about your experience with the being bought by an American company, because I think that is so prevalent, really. It is quite difficult, isn't it? Because there are a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the tech space, aren't there? And that whole thing about being bought, because I actually went through this myself. My business was bought by a US communications group, and it's a difficult transition often, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's happened to so many of my clients, because my job is to go in and make my client, acquirable or whatever it is they want to be. So most of my clients that have gone down this path is because they've wanted to be acquired. So I've gone and I've built them up to the point where they are acquirable. And then what happens is they get acquired, usually by another equipment company in the States or whatever it might be. And they kind of miss the point, because I'm like, lovely, my job here is done. And yet what happens every single time? It's all the guys in the States. They all go, oh, that's brilliant. Oh, you're absolutely amazing. Oh, yeah, we're going to keep you on. Oh, we're going to do this. And then they're like, dump me on the plane on the way home. And I'm like, I don't actually mind. Just look me in the eye, shake my hand and say, thank you for doing a good job. We'll take it from here. And I have one example. This was years ago. I'm not even going to name the company because it's so embarrassing for them. But they did this whole thing, and then they brought on their own team in the States. And about a week later, one of the guys rang me and said, look, could you just look over a press release they've written for me? And I'm like, well, I suppose so then, because I like you guys. They faxed me. So this is how long ago this was. They sent me this press release, and there were 39 typos in it, to the point where line of sight in telecoms is spelt SIGHT. They spelt that wrong. They spelt Massachusetts wrong. They lived there, and I love it if they can just carry on from where I left and do a good job. But sometimes I just wish they'd keep me around a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, because that's, I mean, look, it's a whole topic in itself, isn't it? Because a lot of the time that process of being acquired is so abrupt and so brutal that a lot of things go very badly wrong, for sure. And I mean, this could be the topic of, the whole topic for tonight's conversation, but it's not going to be, because we're going to get on to your zone of genius, really. So that's the thing that we want to really talk about next. So you spent a lot of time in technology, haven't you, Nikki? Really, that's your kind of field, isn't it?
It is. And I've always, I can help anybody. Don't get me wrong. I had a thing about a year ago where people lined up to speak to me for 15 minutes at a time. And I had, dog trainers and hairdressers and B&B owners. And yes, I can help them. But the reason that technology is my sweet spot, I think, is because, well, first, I've got the degree in computer science. Yeah. And secondly, it's because one of the things that technology companies just really, really, really need is somebody that can take on a CTO in the best possible way and translate technology into human. And I talk about that an awful lot. And what I find with CTOs is I can stand my own with them because I understand the language they're speaking. I can ask them difficult questions. I can translate what they're saying into human. I can help them shape it into a product. And perhaps the most important thing is I can spot nonsense at 100 paces. So if a CTO tries to pull the wool over my eyes, they're just not going to get very far with it. So that's why I sort of feel like what I do lends itself very well to technology companies, for those reasons, definitely.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because a lot of it's obviously culturally it's quite different, isn't it? Marketing and technology. I don't mean technology businesses, but I mean the things that the CTOs are dealing with all day, every day, all the systems and the processes and so on. And there can be quite a big gulf, can't there, between the two? Because essentially marketing is a sort of blend of creativity and data, really. I mean, it's quite different, isn't it?
It is, but it also has to go much further back into the organization. And this is a post which I actually did on Monday, which has gone down mostly very well, let's put it that way. Basically saying, your CMO, your chief marketing officer, has to be fit for purpose, and they have to have a place in the boardroom. And where has all the marketing gone? I mean, this is my next theme, is really that if you look at how marketing used to be, I mean, you'll see behind me, I'm like a 1980s textbook marketer, right? In that marketing used to own product. That's now a separate thing. Marketing used to own price and place, which are distribution. And they're now an amalgam of the management team and sales and product. And then marketing's kind of left with promotion. And actually, marketing has to just go properly back into the organization. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind who owns what. I don't mind what labels things are given. What I mind is where things slip through the gaps, or where things are siloed, or where there's nobody actually there properly saying, let's join all of these things together. And that's me. I mean, I've got 9 modules that I talk about in my 360-degree marketing thing, and 8 of them come before marketing plan.
Yeah, that really does make a lot of sense, because I think that's something that so many people misunderstand. Marketing is not just promotion. Promotion is a very small part of marketing, actually. And,
Yeah, quite.
I come from a strategic marketing background myself. I mean, for me, marketing is really, it is so much more. It is so fundamental to the growth of a business. And it's not just something fluffy that happens on the outside, right?
It's absolutely not. And I can wax lyrical about fluff in it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's absolutely a place for the promotion, but even all the kind of like go-to-market stuff that's going on at the minute, which is sort of revolutionizing, in inverted commas, in the US, that's just sales meets marketing, meets product, meets customer success. And all the stuff that we've already been doing all along. And it's just new language, and there's this whole kind of let's recreate new language for stuff that we've always been doing. And the promotional side of things is really, really important, but not if you've got nothing to anchor it to, no substance behind it. And the same is true of the go-to-market. If you look at it, it's like, let's go to market, and I'm like, with what? For whom? And people are like, oh, yeah, perhaps we should think about that. And I'm like, yeah, would you?
Yeah. So tell us, Nikki, about what a typical kind of project might look like for you. I mean, you can talk about, real projects, or you can talk about just theoretical ones that kind of fit the mold, as it were.
Oh, a make-believe project. How nice.
Make-believe project. Yeah. Your ideal make-believe project. Why not?
I feel like I'm kind of like the marketing equivalent of, the one, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and failing that, the next best time to plant a tree is now. I kind of feel like I'm the marketing equivalent of that, because quite often a company gets to me. So you're building a tech company, and you start with your CTO and your CEO, and then you bring on some technical people, and then you bring on a product person, and then you bring on a salesperson, and then you bring on somebody else to look after everything else in the office, the HR and the finance and the everything else's. And then you think, right, marketing. And at that point, what a company tends to do is they either bring on a very senior marketer, which there really isn't any point in doing because there's not enough for them to do as a full-time job.
Yeah.
Or they bring on either a very broad generalist or a content marketer.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is you still get this gap between the CEO and the content marketer. So a content marketer goes, look at this lovely 2,000 word piece I've written. And the CEO's going, yeah, that's not even going to reach, my in pile, let alone my out pile here. So companies tend to find me when they're at that pure sort of crossing the chasm point, which is now we need to turn into a grown-up company. And yes, I absolutely can help them there, and I can build all the marketing machines, and I love it because it's a real challenge. But I also kind of go, well, that stuff you've been struggling with for the last 18 months, like what should our product look like? How should our sales be structured? How are we going to actually get investment? That's actually the stuff that I could have already been helping you with. So my ideal client really is it's a tech client who's they've got a product, or they've got a technology. They may not even have a product. So again, you get to this whole, I'm not going to put product market fit as a label because everybody's got a different definition, but you'll get sort of a cybersecurity company going, we've got a widget at one end, and then they'll go, and cybersecurity is a big deal at the other end. And I'm like, okay, well, can we make those two things join together so we can just end up going, we have this product for these people for this purpose to solve this problem, and then we can actually do something with it. So I definitely sort of help with the cerebral side of things, if you like, and then really building the marketing machines. And then, I kind of get to where, in theory, that the handle can just be cranked. But then because I'm also an advisor to CEOs, so I don't just do the CMO role, I'm kind of a level above that as well. So I actually work just really closely with CEOs, sort of as a sounding board, as an advisor, as a, you're the only person I can talk to, or as I've got a post-it notes on my wall of things to talk to Nikki about. Yeah. So I have clients that I'm just on retainer, and we just do strategy sessions and have calls as needed. And it's just helping them unpick things and just be that sounding board, that advisor as well. So, and then at the other end of the spectrum, I sometimes just do a half-day workshop, throw your business in the air, reassemble it as it lands. Jobs are good, and call me if you need me again. Because it has to be about what the client wants, not about what I want to force on them.
Definitely. But I think the very important and valuable thing that you said there is about essentially being that kind of go-to sounding board. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can really, really understand the value of that, because I think that is where marketing should sit. It should sit right at the top of any business. And I think that is something that so many people do not understand, business owners who are not marketers. And, obviously in the technology space, everybody's very excited at the moment about AI and advancing technology and so on. But do you think that they are taking their eye off the ball to a certain extent? Because it's not where it all stops, is it, really, AI?
No. And I mean, I went to the Cambridge Tech Week a few months ago.
Yeah.
And AI very much splits into the two camps. There's all the chat GPT, whatever nonsense, and fine. I've never used it, so I can't, comment particularly on that. But what I will say is it, to me, that side of things, it's curation. It's not creation. It's not gonna, see patterns and join gaps in things and give you great leaps of imagination. But if you want a quick, give me 10 things about that, or give me 8 things about that, or what's the best knowledge in this space, then fine, use that. But where it's really coming into its own is much more of the stuff that a lot of the Cambridge companies are getting involved in, which is really, really the machine learning, the deep learning, the language models, the using it for intelligent automation. And that's, to me, is where AI and, medical things, that's where it's, it can have a real role to play. But I don't think it's ever going to replace cerebral leaps that human beings can make, in terms of creativity and in terms of, marketing and the role it plays in a business. And then I think we're also getting to where AI is having the same thing that, cybersecurity was 2 years ago, which is, everybody's in AI. Well, 2 years ago, everybody was in cybersecurity, weren't they? So it's going to get this hype and then suddenly come crashing back down to earth with a bang. And then only those companies that are really doing something sensible will stand the test of time.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. And I think you're right about this, about the limitations of AI, certainly when it comes to creativity. I think that is it's a weakness versus our human strength, because I think that's the thing that we've got that animals don't have, right? That is, I often think about, what would an alien think if they came to Earth? What would they be really impressed by? I know obviously there's a lot of talk about UFOs and so on at the moment, but I always think about them sort of landing at the Super Bowl, for example, and seeing, Beyonce perform, or sort of going to the Royal Opera House, or sort of seeing some amazing game of sport, and that kind of ingenuity and that kind of strategic thinking is really something that it's hard to emulate, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, try getting ChatGPT to build a mathematical bridge in Cambridge, where it goes over the river. And I still to this day don't know whether it's an apocryphal story or not, but it's a wooden bridge with no screws. It's just literally been built by the laws of mathematics. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't go down the whole path of AI just because to me, it falls into the category of you either do it or you don't do it. And it's a bit like SEO, you either do it or you don't do it, and I choose not to. And if I have a client who, is an AI company, well, that's different, because it still comes back down to the fundamentals. What are you providing, for whom, for what purpose, what makes you stand out in the market? And whether it's AI or not AI is actually not that relevant, as long as they've got some intellectual property and unique ways of putting things together that make their company have a sensible business model.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So, Nikki, what I wanted to ask you a little bit more about is systems and building systems. And, that's something that I'm very passionate about is marketing systems and marketing machines, and a well-oiled machine to actually, where everything works perfectly, to actually really deliver you those opportunities that kind of drop out on the other side, or those sales or whatever. So do you have kind of specific systems that you favor, or is every client different and you're just, totally, it's never ever one size fits all. It's whatever is the right thing for you. So what's your view on systems?
I'm a great fan of systems and structure and process and control and discipline. That's one of my favorite words. When I was VP marketing, one of the guys that worked for me, he actually designed me a business card that said VP marketing, Duchess of Discipline, and wearer of desirable footwear. So yeah, it's a nice business card to have. He printed it out in A4 and he put it on the office wall in New Zealand, and everybody saw that. Yeah, to me, when you're looking at systems for, lead management and customer management systems and all that good stuff, I tend to not really dabble in that. I let clients get involved with that, because I do most of the marketing that comes before that side of things. And a lot of that is also a sales-driven thing. So, for instance, I've played with Salesforce. Yes, I've been the person that went through 4,321 records in Salesforce one by one, because some idiot had missed a field out. But in terms of those systems, I think it's about keep it as simple as possible. If the world could be run by Excel, I would do that. So in terms of all, I looked at, there's something like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of pieces of, marketing technology there are there. So to me, the rules there are keep it as simple as possible and something that you're not going to have to keep changing, because otherwise you're going to spend more time maintaining your technology stack than you are actually getting on and doing a job.
Yeah.
In terms of systems for the things that I do, I mean, I have my own sort of toolkit of, this is how I organize product market fit, or even things like just running marketing. This is my checklist for a trade show. And it sounds very mundane, but as I keep saying, the mighty is actually built on the minutiae and on the mundane. And so when I did my VP marketing thing, we had something like 60 shows a year, because I looked after 150 countries, 250 partners, 9 vertical markets, up to 13 sales guys at a time. And it was me and 2 other people, right? So this is why when people tell me marketing is really difficult, I'm like, it's hard. It's hard work. It's not hard. There's a difference.
Yeah.
But I had a spreadsheet, and it was a spreadsheet, I told you, for every single trade show, whether it was one sales guy walking up with business cards to a show, or whether it was the full $100,000, be the gold sponsor somewhere. But it was exactly the same sheet. And we would go, yes, no, make it very action oriented. So I think it is very much one size fit. You can't be one size fits all. Every client is different. Every client has different requirements. But at the same time, you just get to where you can, design what's right for them quicker, because you've done it so many times before. So, a client who's got a piece of software is going to need something different from a client that's got, a piece of hardware, or like routes to market. I know how I go about designing models for routes to market, but the answer is different for every client. And it's really the answer that the client wants. So if that makes any sense. So I think it is very much, every project is, looked at its own merits.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what would you say the number one challenge is when clients come to you? I know that you said that they don't always come to you early enough in your view, because when you meet them, they often say, I've got all these problems that you could have resolved earlier. But what point do they come to you, and what is their biggest challenge at that time, would you say, generally?
They usually come to me when they've sort of reached a point that I kind of call, which is, something's broken, something's about to break. They just know something's not quite right, or their VC has said, your marketing's really not terribly good, go and speak to Nikki. And the problem isn't always what they think it is. And that kind of is the problem. I mean, let's face it, marketing is never going to come under the category of urgent. It just doesn't. And actually, nor should it. And so what it is normally a different problem. So, I mean, I had one client, and they had spent an absolute fortune on a sales consultant, and they couldn't work out why they weren't getting any meetings. So this came to me and went, well, actually, do you want to have a look at it? And it's because it wasn't a sales problem. It wasn't a sales problem. It was a marketing problem. So I got in a room with the sales consultant, and I was very unpopular because I said, well, you know what the fundamental problem with any sales process is? And they all went, what? And I said, well, it presupposes you know what you're actually selling. So all the sales guys suddenly went, oh, that makes sense. And the CEO went, that's really quite good. And the sales consultant disconnected with me on LinkedIn. So they normally kind of come to me when they know there's a problem somewhere, but they don't quite know what it is. And it's really difficult, because my first job is to go in and just sit there. And I don't just go in and see the CEO. I'll sit with the CEO and the CTO and the sales guys and the product guys. And then the problem kind of bubbles to the surface. And sometimes it's a product problem. Sometimes it's a sales problem. Sometimes it's a people problem. But people don't always find me as and when they should, but they know when they've got a problem that they should call me for, if that makes any sense. So it's just kind of, I don't know whether I'm in the Ghostbusters category of marketers, but I know that people go, so-and-so said I should speak to you because you'll be able to fix this. And I said, what is this? And they go, I don't know. And then I come in and I identify this and I fix this.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point, because I think when people are not marketers, they don't know what they don't know. And of course, why would they? Because that's obviously why they need you, but they know that something is not working and needs to be fixed. And sometimes I think it is our job as marketers to bring them awareness of what that problem is and what it really is, which is. as opposed to just a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also why I talk about building businesses, and why I talk about being a CEO sounding board, and why I talk about strategy and tactics, and why I talk about, foundations. And because as soon as you talk marketing, people think the fluffy stuff. So people go, well, I've got no marketing budget. And I'm like, well, are you building a business? And they go, well, yes. And I'm like, well, then you do. So that's why I very, very much talk about building businesses and growing businesses and fixing businesses and aligning sales and marketing, because a CEO can get behind aligning sales and marketing a lot easier than they can get behind marketing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned this thing about, we've got no budget, because it is marketing costs, right? I mean, I often have to, say this, remind my audience of this, that, building businesses was never supposed to be free. And I think because so many people are on social media, they've kind of got used to the idea of, well, you know what, if I just show up on LinkedIn and I do my thing every day, and if I reach out on LinkedIn, I don't have to spend any money. And the truth is that LinkedIn is there for LinkedIn to build its audience and to get paying advertisers, just like all the other social media platforms. They don't actually exist to promote your business. And if you want to promote your business effectively, unfortunately, most of the time you do have to reach your hand in your pocket, don't you? Even if you are a startup.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm brains over budget every day. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've spent zero on advertising. So I am brains over budget every single time, but it's still, even brains cost money, So, but it's about doing the right things, and it's about going, So what you've got, you've got 10 grand to throw on social media, but not to spend on a consultant who'll get your plan for the next 2 years sorted out for you, and you've just actually wasted all of that money.
Yeah.
So, and it's not even about spending. It is about spending money, but it's also not about spending money. It's about realizing that A, brains cost money, and B, you're much better spending a little bit of money to get your plans just completely and utterly figured out, so you're not throwing good money after bad.
Definitely.
And that's what people forget.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, because it's so easy once the train's left the station to just keep rolling down the wrong track, right? Heading towards the wrong destination.
But this is it, and you can actually stop things. People are like, well, I've started, so I might as well carry on. And no, you can stop, and you can regroup, and you can replan. And it was hilarious. I did this kind of like live thing in the States, and it was all about, well, this company spending, it was all a mythical company, but they're spending $100,000 a month on social media, and they're going to do a rebrand, and you don't get buy-in from the board. So, where will you find the money for the project? And I'm like, well, A, if I don't get buy-in from the board, I'm quitting, because I'm meant to be CMO. And B, if you're spending $100,000 on social media, you're not looking at a rebranding project. So clearly that's not working. So move the money about. I don't get why people think that there are all these different buckets. It's not, it's a marketing budget. And if one bucket of money is not working for you, put it in a different bucket of money. I don't get this whole, but the money we're spending on social media isn't working, but we can't spend it on rebranding either. Well, not that I'm saying rebranding is an answer, but you can move things around buckets. It's just money.
Yeah. So was this thing that you just referred to? What exactly was that? Was that like a theoretical, or was it a real kind of opportunity where you were brought in and they said?
Luckily it was theoretical, because I would have literally written my resignation letter. I said this. It's like it was just hilarious. It was meant to be about design as well, and how you use design. So it's the Hype CCL conference thing in the US, and I love it because they do real drills. And normally I'm on the other side. Normally I'm teaching salespeople how to do marketing, which is such a lot of fun, because it's a completely different mindset. In that, one of the things that the salespeople went away and did, and this is the prime example of how they're different. One of the things the salespeople did was they took the assumptions that I gave them and ran off to try and sell them. Whereas I said, why didn't you challenge the assumptions that I gave you? Because that's what a marketer would have done, immediately challenge them. So they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, I love them, but this one I was kind of on the doing the drill side of it. So which is a very different place for me to be. And so they're absolutely brilliant. If anyone wants me to introduce them to the people, I will. But it was very hypothetical, because I really don't want to work for a company that operates that way in the real world.
No. So, I mean, how important is it, would you say, for marketing teams to work together And what is the best way for a marketing team to work together?
Ooh, I think it has to start from the top, because if you don't have a CMO that's properly in charge, then you're going nowhere fast anyway. So, I mean, when I ran my team, I said we weren't a very big team, but it's about transparency and visibility. And I know they're sort of buzzwords, but they're also true in that, if you don't all know what you're doing and you don't have a joined up plan and you don't share the joined up plan, then you're not going to get anywhere. And one of the things that is really, really tricky about marketing is measuring it. And this is the one we keep getting on about, because I will stand by this. There are two things. Marketing is a cost center. I don't care what anybody else says. Marketing is a cost center. It's not a revenue generator. It's a cost center. And then secondly, it is impossible to tie one sale to one act of marketing. If you're living in a B2B world where you're quite often selling long sales cycle, risk-averse industries, you could have 28 marketing touches between, finding this person and selling to them.
Yeah.
What you can do, you get a feel for what's working and what isn't working, and you adjust your plans accordingly. So, so that's one side of it. But in terms of team working together, I think it just comes down to communication, really. And if you all know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you talk regularly, then very few problems actually occur. Most problems occur because there are bottlenecks and there are gaps and there are disconnects. And you can solve all of that by communication and by systems and by processes and by structure and by control and discipline.
Yeah, totally. And they all work hand in hand, really, don't they, Nikki?
Mm. Definitely. As I said, they called me the Duchess of Discipline, but I was very nice about it, I think. It is, and you can't expect to throw, marketers into silos. And that's the other thing that I talk about a lot is, who strategizes the strategy. So with the best will in the world, if you've got a brand person, when they say strategy, they mean brand strategy. If you've got a product person, when they say strategy, they mean product strategy. If you've got a PR person, when they say strategy, they mean PR strategy. So somebody has to get all of the threads of all these strategies and turn them into a corporate strategy that where everything aligns, and they have that visibility of all of those different layers.
Definitely. Yeah. So what's next for you, Nikki? Where are you actually headed personally in terms of, your next phase of work or your next phase of growth? What's kind of, personal to you in terms of where you want to go?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I live in the moment now. I don't really. Well, I mean, I have to write my book because I've been talking about it for so long. Now, the problem I've got is that I've got so many books in me, as everybody will say. So I don't know where to start, because I think probably the book's going to be about helping founders, because where I love helping founders, but I'm not saying they can't afford me, but collectively they can afford me, but individually, they probably can't. So that's why I do a lot of free stuff, altruistic stuff. So I do a lot of mentoring, and I do give a lot of my time back. And, but what I find is I have if I have 10 people that I've had 10 conversations in a row, I think you should have all been in the same room. So there's two things. So one is write my book, and the other is I'm really, really keen to set up some form of membership based type thing. So whether it's like a cohort or a group thing, whatever it might be. So there are 10 people in the room, so they get. I believe that startups need sort of 80% generic advice and 20% customized advice.
Yes. And
so my plan is to get enough of them in a room where they get that. They get the 80% customized, the 80% generic stuff, and then the 20% customized, a bit of individual love as well. I think founders and startups of tech companies, if they've got real challenges on their hands, because they've got these great ideas and they're trying to get them out there into the world. And they have the challenges that they don't know what marketing is. They think it's tactics. Then when you explain to them what it really is, they go, I'd love some of that, but I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, A, if you used your money sensibly instead of throwing it away on social media at the first possible opportunity, you might. But B, get you and 9 of your mates in a room and I'll drive you through. So whether it's like a mini accelerator, but again, I'm sort of anti-accelerators to some extent, because some of them just drag you kicking and screaming up the hill and then dump you out into the real world to go, crashing in the rocks of reality. Whereas I feel like really an accelerator should get you to where you can actually survive and thrive in the real world. So again, it's kind of the crossing the chasm thing. They get to a point and they still need a bit of help. So yeah, so for me, I think it's work on the membership side of things. It's getting my book out there. It's really it's kind of evangelizing, like the renaissance of proper marketing is really what I want to do. I keep saying, marketing belongs in the boardroom. Marketing belongs, on the right hand side of the CEO. Marketing deserves to have a capital M. And I will keep on keeping on that one, because to me, the more people realize that, the fewer companies will actually get into problems, because they'll have all this mindset right from the start. So a bit of evangelism going on as well there. And then in the short term, it's just, I love sort of having clients who have me on retainer, where basically, they just have a list of Nikki things and they throw them at me every time we talk. So if there are any awesome tech CEOs out there that need a kind of mentor, advisor, accelerator, CMO, conscience all in one, then that's me.
Oh, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And I think you have so much to offer to startups, Nikki. I mean, it would be fantastic, I think, if you had some kind of a membership or an incubator or an accelerator or something where you could really share all that amazing wisdom and knowledge that you've accumulated, because people really need it. And I think it's very, very hard, isn't it, to get a business off the ground? It's one of the hardest things of all. Sometimes it's actually easier to scale, wouldn't you say, rather than, get through that kind of first phase and really get that product market fit and all of those kind of ingredients in place so that you've got something coherent. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's tricky because the first lump is, as you say, it's getting to where you've got those paying customers. And one of my oft repeated refrains is 17 pilots do not a product make. So in the early stages, it's very much, which again comes back to Crossing the Chasm, which is one of my favorite books, in that the early stages, you're scrabbling around. It's the whole, you only know product market fit when you've actually got it. But it is incredible. It's the early stages are incredibly tricky. But this is where, whether I'm working with a really early stage company or even big grown up companies, I talk about focusing and prioritizing. So everything I do, we triage and prioritize, and then we focus and we execute, and then we reflect and we learn, and then we repeat. And it's only ever 3 things. There might be 3 big things, there might be 3 small things, there might be, and you have this rolling boil of 3 things, because it's a fire hose when you're starting up, and you cannot do everything all at once. So pick 3 things and focus on them. And that's what I will always say. And this is why one of the things that I always do is offer a free 45-minute call with people, because at the end of that, they will know what their 3 things are. And then they can go off and do them. And I always offer that up. And people go, you can't possibly, you've got 27 things in your modules. How can you possibly get to 3 by the end of an hour? And I'm like, well, because I can. And then scaling is different then, because you realize a lot of scaling is about deciding what you're not going to do anymore. And that, throwing out the bad behaviors and getting to where things are are replicable and repeatable and documentable and outsourceable and delegatable. Definitely. And that's actually, as much of that is then moving from this whole founder thing into being a grown-up company thing. And again, that's really hard. And there's so much hype now about, founder branding and all that good stuff. And the one thing, again, I keep saying to founders is that that's all well and good, but your founder branding should be something you capitalize on, not something that constrains you. Because if it's constraining you, then you're not ever going to scale.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, look, it's been such a wonderful conversation, Nikki. So many exciting kind of nuggets in there. I really have enjoyed our conversation together. So if people do want to contact you, what is the very best way for them to do that?
It's probably LinkedIn, actually. I spend way too much time on LinkedIn. So I am Nicky Dibben on LinkedIn. I think I'm probably the only me. If you look, if you see graphics with very weird Muppets and crocodiles and things in, then that's me. I do my own very odd mid-journey graphics on my posts. And yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me. Absolutely. And I hope nobody heard all the scrabbling. I do not know there's workmen in my attic, and I don't know what they're doing up there, but that's why every now and again I've seemed a bit distracted. I'm actually completely with you. I just waiting for some legs to fall through my office.
Really? Well, I didn't hear anything, and at least it's not rats.
Well, yes, yeah, I've got 2 big cats, so I'm okay. But yeah, it's Nicky Dibben on LinkedIn, and yeah, I mean, it's just I love any type of technology company, and that's the thing. I've worked with I said Vodafone and Motorola and Fujitsu at one end of the scale. And then I've written business plans that have raised millions for companies that don't even exist at the other end of the scale, because what they all have in common is a need to get a marketing mindset and a need to get some focus and a need to get on and do some stuff. So the size of the business actually doesn't matter. It's about having this marketing mindset. And I tell you what, I can help a company with a small budget who wants to do stuff a lot more than I can help a company with a big budget that goes, marketing's just, fairy dust and unicorns. So.
Well, yeah. Thank you again, Nikki. It really has been a pleasure, and look forward to getting the podcast episode out and seeing you again soon. Okay. Bye for now.
All right. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Jane Bayler is the Smart Connector, a London-based, passionate serial entrepreneur, brand marketer and business growth exploder who helps overlooked and undervalued consultants and sector experts generate consistent, scalable revenues through becoming the go-to choice of their dream clients. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate you liking, rating, and reviewing the podcast on the platform you've heard it on. And check out the links in the show notes if you'd like to connect with Jane or any of her guests in person. Thank you for listening and come back soon.